Okay, so it's time for Wendy Watch. Let's start with Kyrie Irving and his free agency market.
Yeah, so Irving's in the same boat that James Harden was in, the fact that he doesn't have much of a market outside Dallas. So he's trying to meet with some teams. We heard yesterday he's going to meet potentially with the Phoenix Suns. The Suns have no, feasible, realistic way of doing this, and most of the teams that might be involved in a sign and trade would make this very difficult. I do think it would behoove Irving to investigate whether or not Philadelphia is interested, but that is a long shot in itself. So I suspect he's going to try to get the best deal out of Dallas in the next couple of days, but we'll see. He's trying.
How about Draymond Green? What about his free agency?
Did you guys watch that the match last night?
Yes.
Draymond Green was, if you think he's not going back to the Warriors, I got news for you. Here's the other thing. His market also has apparently dried up. There's no teams that have saved space. We thought there was a chance that Sacramento might go for a long shot move there. They re-signed Harrison Barnes yesterday. Draymond Green's going to be back with the Warriors. The question is the terms of the deal and how much of it is going to be guaranteed. But that's good news for the Warriors. They obviously plan to get him back when they traded Jordan Poole.
Obviously, the big news is James Harden. What does opting in mean for his future?
It means it's not going to be in Philadelphia. So now we're going to see if there's any other teams that emerge. The Clippers made an interesting move 2 nights ago when they waived Eric Gordon. That was the first time we'd ever seen in the Steve Ballmer era that they had made a move that looked like it was for money. But that does give them some flexibility on their balance sheet going forward, and it sets up the possibility that they can go hard for James Harden in a deal. By the way, I don't think it necessarily rules Russell Westbrook out. It doesn't mean that Russell Westbrook can't get back if Harden becomes a Clipper. But I also think that the Clippers are looking to create a big three. Paul George is not being offered in any sort of James Harden package, to my knowledge.
So then what does a potential Harden trade mean for the future of Joel Embiid?
That is a fascinating question, and I think that is sort of the unknown that we have right now. Where Joel Embiid is in there, where his patience level is. The Sixers have avenues where they could use this opportunity to improve their roster, both medium term and long term. Not having James Harden on their books makes things easier. It makes things easier for a Tyrese Maxey trade. It makes things easier. They can acquire some assets that they can flip for another trade down the line. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're not going to be right back in the championship race this year. But if I was Joel Embiid, I would want to make sure that they were going all out to make sure my team was replacing James Harden's talent. And right now, we're not exactly sure how the Sixers are going to pull that off.
And, Tim Bontemps, I go back to something you said earlier. If you're Daryl Morey, the pressure is on because you got to build a winner while Joel Embiid is in his prime.
They do, and I think the fact that the Sixers didn't take the easy path and pay James Harden means they're confident they can do that, right? And they believe that they can go out and get players, whether it's, one player, as Brian talked about earlier, one player in a trade that they say, oh, hey, we get this 1 or 2 guys, we feel good about this, or they take some stuff in one trade, turn it into another trade, and then they come back and get more stuff then. I think the Sixers came into this thinking, hey, if James Harden wants to come on a deal that we like, we're good with that. If James Harden doesn't, then we'll be good with that too. And I think now it's on them to prove that's the case. But I think with Daryl Morey, a guy who's as creative as any GM in the league, I'm sure he's been drawing up stuff on the whiteboard for 6, 8, 12 months, probably since James Harden signed that deal last summer. What are my options on every front? And now we'll see which one of those comes to fruition.
Nick Friedell, if I'm Joel Embiid, I'm thinking, okay, for a few seasons, I had Ben Simmons. We got him up out of here. That didn't work. All of a sudden, I had Jimmy Butler with me for a season. That didn't work. They shuttled him up.
Well, it worked, but Philly screwed it up.
Yes, exactly. It worked, but Philly got rid of him. And now all of a sudden, I had James Harden here for a season and a half. Now he wants up out of here. He's got to be looking like, hey, I want to win. I'm in my prime. I'm the MVP. I need someone. I need a Robin with me to help me get to the promised land.
And Brian, that Robin doesn't exist right now that Philly can go out and get, and everybody feels good. Maybe it's Lillard down the line, we'll see. But the key to me is, if you're Joel Embiid and you run the show in Philly and everything runs by you, if he really wanted James Harden back, Daryl Morey is not going to be like, okay, James, we don't like the price that you're at. Embiid wants you back, we're going to bring you back. The problem is, if you're the Sixers and you don't get through that second round again next season, and you've made the coaching change and Nick Nurse is in and Doc Rivers is out, if you're Embiid, Brian, why are you staying in Philly? Why aren't you looking to go somewhere else and saying, you know what, we tried our best, it didn't work here, I'm going to find a different place to ride out the rest of my prime in this league?
Tim Bontemps, give the people of Philadelphia some hope here, because they're probably looking at this saying, wait a minute, I know I don't want James Harden long term, But if he's gone, all I got is Embiid, and then he may be gone. What's the
Well,
hope?
what I would say is that he's not gone,
Yeah.
right? He's under contract, and that's the thing. I do think the Sixers in this situation have a lot of leverage because they do have him under contract. If James Harden had opted out, I actually think he would have had a decent amount of leverage because then the Sixers' options would have been a lot more limited. They couldn't have really done a trade with the Clippers, right? Clippers would have had to move a ton of money, wouldn't have been realistic. So you probably have to go to the table with then and sit with James and say, all right, what kind of number do you want? Where can we get to? And maybe they do sign him for more money than they would have wanted to pay. But because he opted in, the Sixers have the ability to control the situation and get what they want out of it. Now, maybe that ends up being really good. Maybe it ends up being really bad. But they hired Daryl Morey, one of the best GMs in the league, precisely to be in situations like this and not have a guy like Jimmy Butler on the team and let him get away, right?
You know, this came right down to the wire yesterday. Harden opted in right at the end. I just say you never know what happens in free agency. We think Houston's going with Fred VanVleet. Well, what if Fred VanVleet ends up re-signing with the Raptors in the next 24 hours? Then Houston's got money to spend. But now Harden is off the board altogether. So Philadelphia is not without options here. Harden is the guy who's got to try to force this. What Harden knows is he's going to get $36 million. What he doesn't know is whether he can get into the situation he wants.
You've got a great GM. You've got a new coach and Nick Nurse who's won a title. You've got assets to make trades. Like, there is a lot to be excited about if you're a Sixer fan. This team isn't far away, but now they have one very big question, which is what happens with this James Harden piece. But this team's actions have shown they're not going to be upset if James Harden's playing elsewhere because they have other plans in mind. We'll see which one comes to fruition.
Let's talk about their rival in their division, because in the East, how about the Celtics? They introduced Kristaps Porzingis yesterday. You know, Boston traded for Porzingis in a 3-team deal, sending away Marcus Smart to the Grizzlies. Porzingis was asked yesterday about joining forces with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum.
I want to come here to make life easier for those guys. You know, hopefully with my skill set and my talent, I can take some pressure off of those guys. And that's it. I come here to try to make this team better. And I'm excited to play with such high-level guys that have been there from year to year, you know, and have that experience already. I think it could be a great combination.
Okay, Tim, I know you were there. You were at that press conference. Does trading for Porzingis finally put the C's over the top?
It's funny because the question we have in the prop is, are they closer to a title?
Yeah.
I think they have a higher championship ceiling. I also think they have a lower floor, right? Like we just talked about, the safe move for Philly would have been to pay James Harden and have that group together because you know that's at least pretty close, and maybe you get moves on the edges to get over the line. Sort of the same thing in Boston. They had been to the conference finals over and over again. They've been to the finals. Marcus Smart has been a critical part of their team. Now you take him out, you put in Kristaps Porzingis, you completely change the makeup of your franchise, both on the court and in the locker room. Now they still have to figure out what to do with Malcolm Brogdon. Grant Williams is a free agent, but I do think Kristaps Porzingis is a more talented player. I think it gives Boston more options at both ends of the court. But this is a big swing by Brad Stevens. And it is a big risk to take a team that's this close and make such a drastic change to what they're about. I think it could work, but it's just not often you see a team in this kind of position make this kind of swing in a trade like this. And I'm fascinated to see what the Celtics look like next year.
What do you think, Nick?
It comes down to two questions. Can he stay healthy?
Yes.
And the second one is even bigger. Can he perform the way he does in regular season games when it matters the most in the postseason? And that's not really something we've seen from Porzingis over time.
10 career playoff games.
On paper, you like the way the Celtics look. But when you take out a guy who was the heart of that locker room at times and was so well respected internally over the years in Marcus Smart, you just don't know what's going to happen when times get tough in the postseason. So I still like Boston. I still think they have a legit chance to win it all. But if it's me in the East right now, I want to see what Milwaukee does with their moves with Middleton and Lopez. And I think Giannis comes back as motivated as he's been in a long time to say, hey, I'm still here. We're going to right everything we did, and we're going to get through all the different problems that we had last season.
Wendy, is Boston done dealing?
No, absolutely not. They got some, Brian, they got some money to spend here because they didn't trade for Porzingis to not give him a contract extension. And that's going to be a big number. He makes $36 million this year. He's not taking a giant pay cut. Maybe he comes down a little bit, but that's a max salary. The other thing is they're deep into the tax. So their Celtics are deeper into the tax than they've ever been in the history of the franchise. Are they going to be able to keep Grant Williams? And as Tim said, they were looking to trade Malcolm Brogdon last week. Do they re-examine that to try to get their salary under control?
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.